Alright, hey guys, this is Mike from Your Car Dealer Bond, and one thing that I did notice in some of the analytics that we looked at from last year's videos. So last year's YouTube videos, there was a couple of things that I noticed that really did well. One of them was the SWOT analysis, and I'll throw a link to that video down in the show notes, but that's a great little video that I did, probably 15 minutes, 10 minutes or something. I think the other one that did really well, that I noticed at least, that really popped, was talking about how we started the company. What did we kind of just taking a step back, how did this whole thing get started? And I remember, this is before I started the Your Car Dealer podcast. This may have been 2 months before I started the Your Car Dealer podcast, maybe. And I remember vividly, like yesterday, recording some content that unfortunately nobody will ever get the chance to hear, but and it really went back. And it went all the way back. And I really started to dive deep down into sort of what, I don't know, you kind of look back on some different things and you kind of start to think about, okay, where, if I had to distill down what exactly it was, where did I hit, where was my first time that I had hit, and I'd really taken it all the way back to, I'm probably, 11 years old at the time, 5th grade, I want to say, maybe, and maybe even 6th grade, no, probably 5th grade, and I remember vividly going out for football, in between 5th and 6th grade, I think that's what it was, going out for football, being a disgusting fat body, might even be in between 4th and 5th. Anyway, going out for football, being a disgusting fat body, being one of the worst kids on the team, being on a successful team, right? I was Pop Warner. This is, let's see, Anaheim. Shout out to hometown. Here we go, Anaheim. Anaheim, California. This is, geez, don't even ask me the year. Probably 87, something like that. And Pee Wee, that's what it was. Pee Wee, Pop Warner. The level was Pee Wee. Coach Ramsey, rest in peace. Shout out Coach Ramsey, Rammer. Man, great coach. Loved Coach Ramsey to death, man. Remembered a ton of stuff from him. Coach Thompson too, Coach Ronnie Thompson. Any of you guys out there that know Coach Ronnie Thompson, much love. So started off, and I'm thinking to myself, here we go. I was terrified, disgusting little fat body. And I start to look around, and there's some kids that are a little older, better shape, thin. Che Garcia is our star running back. Che Garcia, man, what a beast. Anybody from the Anaheim circuit that had anything to do with football around in the early 90s, in high school football, would remember the name Che Garcia. Set some records in the county. Was really a stud. He had a couple of brothers that were studs too, older brothers. Che was just an animal. I mean, beast, man. Thin, quick, and cuts like Barry Sanders. At least back for 11-year-olds. I mean, he was just making fools miss, man. On defense, he was getting the tackles. Wasn't thick, wasn't known for his hitting, but he'd get you, and he'd grab you and tackle you up because he'd jump on you. But his deal was, as a running back, boy, no better running back than this guy. So quick, so fast, especially at that age. Abel Acosta, second best running back. I mean, just phenomenal. Abel could do tons, but always a little bit of a backseat to Chad. These guys were monsters. We had a great quarterback, Gilbert Arredondo, Gilly, monster quarterback, monster on defense. This guy loved to hit. Terrifying. Loved Gilbert. All these guys, thin, in shape, right? They all had something in common. I was a disgusting fat body. I was the guy that they put in for 6 plays a game only because of the state or the Pop Warner requirement. You had to let every kid on the team play 6 plays a game, no matter how bad he was. 6 plays. You owed him 6 plays every game. So I got my 6 plays, and there was a couple other guys that, I was at the bottom of the barrel. Me, Shane, not Shane. What the heck was his name? His last name was Valdez. I'm thinking Shane Valdez. Definitely not Shane Valdez. My apologies, Shane, if you're out there listening, brother. Valdez. What the hell was Valdez's first name? I forgot what Valdez's first name was, but he was another little fat body like me. And me, Valdez, and there was one other guy, Jeremy. We were the worst, just the pits. They'd always have to find a different spot where they could weed us in between 2 different good players, and hopefully we wouldn't cause too much ruckus, right? Either offensive line, usually, sometimes defensive line. And just hope we wouldn't, put him at defensive tackle. He'll get kind of camouflaged in the middle, and nobody will notice that we got a huge hole right here named Mike Ramos. There was 3 of us. Me, Valdez, Jeremy. And that Jeremy, that little fat-bodied Jeremy, he was even fatter than I was. Just a little, though. Had just a little extra tiny bit of a roll, little Jeremy. I can't even remember his last name, but it started with a G. I want to say it was Graham, but it wasn't. Jeremy Graham or Jeremy Griffin or Jeremy something, but I couldn't stand this guy. Me and him got into it a couple times, too. Kind of just doing what 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds do, but anyway, we're going at it, and I know you guys are kind of dragging on. Oh my God, what the hell is this guy talking about? Just hang in there with me. So I didn't get any. Every time Che Garcia, I saw him in practice, these guys were the first ones. Abel Acosta, they were the first ones. Every time coach would say take a lap, they were always the first ones that got in. It was never me. It was never Jeremy. It was never Valdez. It was always those guys. I never compared myself to them. I never put myself on the same. I was never on the same plateau as where they were. They were on a totally different level, man. They were good. I was horrific. I was, hey man, we got to put this guy a certain amount of times in, and other than that, let's get his ass on the bench. Me, Jeremy, Valdez. I compared myself to I couldn't stand Jeremy. I like Valdez. Me and Valdez were cool. But I couldn't stand Jeremy. And because of it, Jeremy burned a hole right in my tailbone, man. I wanted Jeremy, and I wanted Jeremy bad. And I wanted to earn me an extra play. And if I could somehow get to 8 plays or get to 10 plays where coach let me on the field for 10 plays and Jeremy was on for 6, that was my competition, right? In other words, it wasn't Weston Blaine. Weston Blaine was too good, another lineman. He wasn't my competition. He had played for a year before that. He was a lot better. It wasn't Jason Mayhall. Jason Mayhall was way too good. He wasn't my competition. It wasn't Jason Bruce. Bruiser wasn't my competition. These guys were way on a totally different level. But who was on my level was fat-ass little Jeremy. And who I couldn't stand was my biggest competition. But because I could sit there and say, hey man, if this disgusting fat body could finish this, it got to the point where I was trying my hardest, man, not to finish last. Me and Jeremy were trucking, and guess what? Now we weren't even second to last. Now we were third to last, fourth to last, fifth to last, because we were sitting there trying to kill ourselves to not fall victim to this other disgusting fat body on the team who I thought I was better than Jeremy. Jeremy thought he was better than me. And both of us wanted the other's playing time. And we both knew in our hearts that we could get there if we forced ourselves to probably do it. And every time we would try to hit each other, we would try to, like in practice, like when we're doing tackling drills, we would try to bump up with each other so I would get to tackle him or he would try to tackle me or whatever it was. But constantly, that was my bar. That was my competition. That was my rabbit. That was the rabbit I was chasing, right? And why? Because and I think this unfortunately has something to do with it. I have an older brother who's 5 years older and super skinny all his whole life. Even to now, he's in really good shape, but was always really thin, so he could do things that I couldn't do. He was able to surf. I couldn't surf at all. He was a good skateboarder. I could barely stay on a skateboard. He had good balance for the most part, and a lot of I didn't. I was very awkward and fat and disgusting. And he was also, he is. He's still to this day a genius. The guy's a lawyer. There's idiot lawyers, but in other words, he's not he's a really, so I couldn't beat him with brains. And anytime we started wrestling around, he'd grab me and put me in a pretzel and grab me, put my legs over my head and poon chuck me or whatever the hell he wanted to me. And there was nothing I could ever do about it. So it was, you kind of get to a point where in that relationship, you get to be real comfortable being second best. If there's a trivia game going on, you're going to be second best. If we were playing Monopoly, there was no question who was going to. My mom couldn't even beat him in Monopoly. My brother was a genius at this. He was just from the get-go, he was always good. I don't know if he cheated. He probably did. But he never lost. Never lost. But no matter if it was that, if it was we were going to go out and play horse, you name it, he was going to beat me at it. So I got real comfortable with the fact that, hey, being second, not so bad. But not to Jeremy. Not to this disgusting fat body. I'm not as good as Che. I'm not as good as Gilbert Arredondo. I'm not as good as Abella Costa. I'm not as good as Jason Mayhall. But boy, this Jeremy, this disgusting fat body. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. How dare you? And that was my bar. That was the guy that pushed me to if there was no Jeremy, if everybody on the team was a skinny, tall, I would have probably never tried super hard because they were so far ahead. I would have made excuses of why I couldn't have never caught them and why they were so good. I can't be them because they just have a natural edge on me. They have a physical edge on me. That's why I can't possibly be better football players than them. But now I got this fat, disgusting mirror right in front of me. And now I got to go after it. Now I got no excuse. Whatever excuse I had, there was no excuse why I couldn't beat Jeremy. In my mind, and that's what drove me. And and that was kind of what. The only reason I say all that is because over the years, then later on down, David Chen. David Chen is another name from my past. Geez, now fast forwarding. This is going to right after high school. David Chen is a guy probably 20 years old at the time. David Chen and I worked for a company called Pacific Monarch Resorts. Pacific Monarch Resorts was selling timeshare, right? So I was one of those guys that was calling people, trying to get them down to a timeshare presentation. And me and Mike and David Chen were constantly in competition. And I thought I was better than David Chen, and David Chen thought he was better than me, and David Chen would, he'd burn me up. He'd get they were called books, where we would book an appointment for somebody to go. That's where we were measured really on one thing: how many appointments you got to show up. So there were books, and then there were shows. You would book it first, and then later on that week is when they were supposed to show. Based on how many shows there were, you got paid a certain amount of money. You hit a minimum. Where my first 2 weeks, oh my God, I hit that minimum, and I hit the draw, and that was it. I didn't hit nothing, man. It was horrible. I didn't have not one book in 2 of my first weeks. And you needed 6 to get onto a Top Gun. It's basically called the Top Gun list, is what they called it. It was a Top Gun list of you got a minimum of 6 books. 6 people made a commitment to show up someplace and sit through a 2-hour timeshare presentation. That was, if you had 6 of them. And now you couldn't just be the guy that kept on getting books and no appointment, nobody showed. Within 2 weeks, they were going to oust you pretty fast. So you got books. If you had at least 6, you were a Top Gun. And probably 95% of the room didn't make Top Gun status. In the first 2 weeks, I didn't get not one book. After that, I never fell off of that 6 books of the Top Gun group ever. But neither did Michael Chen or David Chen. And every week, me and David Chen were hassling it out for who was that. We never were number one. There was always one monster that was always number one. This guy was always number one. Nobody beat him. Who was it? Let me see. See if I even remember the name. Dang it. Hopefully it'll come to me. This guy was a monster, though. This guy was so good, so clean, so proficient. Never wasted words. That was so good. Nobody got. I mean, he was it. And like everybody would have 6 books, 8 books, 11. He'd have 20. He'd have 22. He'd been doing it longer than everybody else. He got paid more than everybody else. And this guy was it, man. And I do mean it, baby. Nice guy too. Quiet guy. He's an introvert. But just really sweet, smooth on the smooth. So he's number 1. We're fighting for number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and me and David Chen. We're the same age, basically. Neither one of us went to college. We're both, a year or 2 years out of high school. We're both fighting for more, the next notch. And boy, oh boy, I couldn't stand this guy. And he didn't like me, and we tried to be cordial a little bit. We weren't mean to each other, but as a matter of fact, he'd be sitting there making books, and he'd be staring at me right in my eyes. There'd be a crowded room, 100 people in this room, 80 people any given night. And he'd be sitting there just staring right at me while he's making the books. It was the greatest. David Chen. And I knew it. Guess what? If I constantly was trying to catch that rabbit at the front, Jeff. His name was Jeff. Damn it, if I can't remember his last name right now. Jeff. Oh boy, it might come to me. His first name was Jeff, though. I promise you that. So Jeff was. If I were to compete with him in my mind, or set my target on him, I would have kept on making excuses of why I couldn't get there. He's been doing it too long. He's too good. He's too professional. I'm 20. He's 40, 45. Right? There was another guy named Ken. Damn it, if I can't remember his last name too. This guy was like 50 something. He never had that many books, but everybody showed. Everybody else had like a 50% show ratio, 40% show ratio. This guy had like 90% always, but didn't make that many actual books. He just always had 11 shows. 9 shows was a bad week for him. 15 shows. He was the only guy that would give Jeff a run for his money, but he couldn't even beat Jeff. But these guys were so much older, so I could chalk it up to, oh, this person's got so much more experience. Of course, that's why they're better. Ooh, this guy's a college graduate. That's why he's better. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, wow. This guy, oh, yeah, this lady, she was, this lady was like an actress or something like that. Or she used to, allegedly, I don't know how true this is, she used to be an actress, and then she used to train people, like, how to be an actress. Like, you know, if you wanted to try out for a part or something, she would help you read lines and learn how to, get into that, tap into whatever the hell it was that, make love to the camera and all this other shit. I don't know. So that was kind of her deal, was she was more like she was a trainer of those people, if you will. So she was slick. She was really good. There were all these different people in that room. 100 people, right? 100 people, all fast talkers too. This is back in the 1995 or 1996, right? So this is, there's all these different walks of life, these little bit of different everything. And here we go. James Johnson was a monster. James Johnson, my God, that was Chris Bush. There was all these monsters out there that was so good. And every single one of them I could look at and say, this is why I'm not better than that guy. But then there was David Chen. And there was no reason why I wasn't better than David Chen. He started the same time I did, or maybe even after. David Chen was same age as I was, didn't go to college. I was in better shape than David Chen at that time. God only knows what David Chen looks like these days, but there was. It's not like I could say, oh man, this guy, he doesn't look like he gets out of the weight room, and so of course he's amped all day long, and maybe that's why he's kicking my ass. No, it's the other way around. I was lifting. I was yoked back then. It's not that I was. I don't know, it wasn't I was lazy. None of it. I was driven. I really, there was no reason I couldn't beat David Chen. Every day he got a show. Every day he got a book when I didn't. Or every time I got 3 and he got 4. Oh, it burned me. It burned me. It never burned me when Jeff or one of these other guys was outpacing me. But it did burn me when this guy, David Chen. Why do I say all that? What am I even talking about all this for? I'm talking about it because having that rabbit that you can compare yourself to and say, hey man, this guy I've got no reason not to be able to hang with this guy. No matter what it is that you're doing, if it's car sale, you're the owner, go find yourself maybe it's a tough thing to do because, at some of these auctions you might not be able to find yourself a good rabbit. But see what you can do this year. Find yourself a rabbit that's going to the auction, maybe not coming back to the same city as you are. If you're going to Odessa or Mannheim, these guys are coming from everywhere. Go find you one. Go start chumming one up. So go start figuring out who's on your level. And you start figuring up and get yourself into some competition with that guy. And you start, how many cars do you sell this week? How many cars are you selling a month? Right? Oh, they're selling 3 cars a month too, just like you. They're selling 4 cars a month, just like you. They're selling 5 cars a month, just like you. Well, good. That's your rabbit. Right? There's no reason why you guys are neck and neck today. Well, how about next month? Why can't your goal be to be outpacing him now? He sold 3, now I want to sell 4 that month. And next month when he comes in and he's selling 4, I want to sell 5. And then next month he's selling 6, I want to sell 7. Right, he's selling 6, I want to sell 10. Whatever it is, but you're trying to level up, right? Find that Jeremy out there. Find that David Chen out there for yourselves. Because if you can find him, you can go and you can set that guy up to be your rabbit. Maybe even find one that's a little ahead of you, right? Go find that guy that's just a little higher up on the totem pole than you are. If you're out there and you're struggling and you're or you're just starting out, trust me, go out there and try to figure, after having a few conversations, find some guys that are not in your market and find out who's doing just a little better than you and set that to be your goal. And as you get to the point where you're outpacing him, you got yourself now another goal is to go find a different one that's outpacing you just by a little. And then you go and you catch that rabbit. That's the trick. If you guys can kind of get to that, you guys, if you set the goal, it's a lot easier to hit than if you're not setting that goal. Because I can tell you, if you can't see it, you can't hit it. Right? You got to be able to see it. What is it? Well, you got to know how many is this guy actually selling? Is he selling 3? Is he selling 4? Is he selling 5? What's he doing? Right? Go out there. Find that rabbit. Get him going. Set your goals up. Set yourself up for 2019. I think you guys can get there. Do what you guys can, because it's a dirty business out there. It's a cutthroat business. It's a tough, competitive business. Nobody cares if you go out of business. Nobody cares if you're not around next month. Nobody cares. You're just another guy that came and went through the system. You're just another... Yeah, you might be cool to talk to at the auction. I might tell you dirty jokes in the line, waiting for some food, waiting for Maria to finish our burritos or whatever the hell. You know, we might have some good time chuckling over lunch while we're sitting at the truck. I get all that. You know, we're sitting there waiting. We're exchanging some rhetoric here or there. We're, sharing some stories about, playing grab ass with whatever you guys are doing. I get all that. That's all good. I like that. That's fun. But it's a cutthroat business. And at the end of the day, when these guys are getting back out and they're trying to figure out how to make the next buck to feed their families, to make payroll, to do whatever it is that they got to do to stay in business another month, guess what? They're not worried about you at the auction that they meet, and they're good for... Half of them aren't even going to remember your name. They call you buddy, right? What's up, man? How you doing? That's what they tell you. They don't even call you by your name half the time. They don't know who you are, right? What do you think, 6 months after you shut down, they're going to remember who you are? They'd see you at the store and they wouldn't even know who you were. Probably couldn't tell you your name, because that's the kind of business this is. That was the other... Funny enough, I had a question come in this month. Question was, have you ever been a dealer? Would you ever, knowing what you know, would you ever become a car dealer? Right? It was a 2-part question. Are you a dealer? Have you ever been a dealer? If the answer is no, would you ever consider getting your license? And the answer is, never been a dealer, never would be a dealer. The reason why is because I would become competition immediately with a bunch of different clients of mine almost overnight. We would become competition. You say, what do you mean? You're in different markets than a lot of these guys. We sell bonds up and down the state. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients. That's right. So it's not like I'm worried about me overstepping some boundaries as the guy in San Diego. But guess what? We might end up both at the Tracy auction bidding on the same car. We might end up bidding on the same car at that Odessa Tracy auction, or up at Mannheim someplace. We might be bidding on the same car. Guess what? If I'm bidding you up or you're bidding me up, and somebody ends up wasting $300 or $400, or you cut into somebody's profit, these things, they tend to remember this. And now when I'm trying to renew your bond, that might not necessarily happen, right? So I think that and trust me, I know what kind of a cutthroat business this is. Back in my prior life, I won't bore you guys with a lot of the details, but in my conversations with hundreds of dealers over the years, I remember talking to a bunch of them, the more seasoned dealer. These are the guys that are, tip top of the food chain. This is top 10% of the industry. I'd have conversations with some of these guys over the years, and the reason I ended up having conversations with them was because I would go on these inspections, and I'm the one that created the inspections for this insurance company. So I'd create the inspections, and then I'd go on a certain amount of inspections every year to make sure, one, I was interviewing, basically I was overseeing the people who were doing the inspection themselves, So I was out basically grading those guys, and at the same time, it's like, hey, well, if I'm going to be out there checking these guys out, I might as well go see the best dealers I can. Why? Because most of them had the biggest policies that you could imagine. They're paying $50,000 for an insurance policy a year. Guess what? I want to go see this guy. Average price at the time was like $3,500. You know, anybody over $40,000, I'm going out to see, baby. So in the process, I'm seeing some of these huge dealerships. Big, lots of inventory, different, garage bays. I mean, these guys, there was some beautiful, beautiful lots, man. And in talking to a lot of these dealers, the ones that were really, really, really successful, was a few things that I noticed that they talked about. And they talked about putting an ass whipping on some of these guys at the auction. Really, really beating them up, taking it to them, being really aggressive. And I'm going back. This is not last week I'm talking about these conversations. I mean, this goes back over 20 years period I'm talking about. And these guys, they would say, I hammer them. I hammer these guys. That's my move, is I hammer them. Every week I hammer these guys. And I hammer them. And I hammer them. So what are you talking about? What does this guy do? He goes and beats people's ass in the parking lot. What does this guy do? What's his move? I don't get it. Man, this guy. So what he would do is every time you're coming up on the block, and you're coming up and it's lane 5, and you're trying to get this, he knows he knows the price point on this car. He knows what it should be, especially back in the days when there was no AutoNeek, there was no VIN verification, the VIN software, the appraisal software, that on the spot you're scanning a VIN number and it's telling you what you should be bidding on this damn thing right in real time. You guys see all the guys that are out there with their phone that take a picture of the damn VIN number right on the block, and that tells them in real time what they should be bidding, right? It's based on data, and it's based on that vehicle's history, right? And so before all this was even a thing, and everybody had it, and it was ubiquitous practically, almost nobody had it except for these dealers that could afford it. So some of these guys were in there, and they knew what these numbers were. They had the inroads. They did their research. They actually knew. So when they were getting in there on this thing, and you wanted to pay, you were bidding on this, and you started at 22, and they knew the top number is 32. They can't go above 32 to make a profit. So everybody's bidding. You guys are at 29, $3,000, 31, 32. They're trying to bid you. He's out, right? He's out at 32. But he knows that if he can hammer you up to 34, if he could bid you up to 34, if he goes 33, he knows already. The way that you've been responding, it's almost like playing cards. A lot of times you know when this guy's bluffing or when he's going, because you can tell by the body language, you can tell by how new they are to this game, you can tell by how green they are. But a lot of times they'd say, I know this guy's I know he doesn't know the price of this vehicle, and I know he's willing to spend maybe up to $4,000. So they'll sit there and they won't get too greedy, because they get too greedy and bid you up to $4,000, you might leave them stuck at 39, and now he's got to buy it and take a $700 loss. That's not the game. It's a lot more subtle. They're trying to beat you for $150 to $200. They're trying to run you up. They know the number that they can buy that car at to make a profit is $3,200. They want to bid 30, even at 32. Somebody gets 32, fine. They bid to 33. Okay, fine. They might bid to 34 to get you to 35. And then they're out. They walk away. You see them. They turn around and walk away. It's not that they just lost interest. They had no interest in the first place at that price. The only thing they wanted was to bid you up, to cost you an extra $100 or $200. The only reason they did it. Say, no way, these guys don't do that. Trust me, if you're saying that, you're the one that they're bidding up. If you're saying that doesn't happen, or no way that who does that? Maybe not at my auction. If that's what you're saying, you're the dude getting bid up. That's for sure. I can tell you that right now. They always say that if you can't spot the sucker in the room, then you're the sucker. right? Lessons aren't free, baby. That's the truth. Lessons are not free. I give them to you guys for free, although my business manager, my business mentor keeps telling me, don't you dare, you bastard. The game is to be sold, not told, Mike. What are you doing? Before she shuts me down and has me start hawking everything to you guys, soak up as much as you can, because she's put me on a tight leash. But boy, oh boy, it's a dirty, filthy game out there. Filthy game out there. Used car dealer, they're bidding you guys up. This is all happening in real time. It happens every week. It happens in every auction. It happens to everybody at the beginning almost. The more you think that it's not happening, the more it's probably happening to you in particular. And it's just all a part of the... Okay, so why? Here's a big question. Why would anybody do that, Mike? Why on God's green earth would somebody do that? If they already know they're not going to make a profit at 32, why can't they let me have it at 33? Why do they got to try to get me to 35? Because over the year, if let's say you go to the auction every week, and every week that guy could get you on one car, right? Even every other week. Let's call it every other week, right? 26 weeks of the year. Let's call it 25, just to make it a nice round number. 25 weeks of the year, this guy can bid you up and make you spend an extra $200 a car. He does that 26 times a year. 25 times a year, you've just spent $5,000. Right? I mean, 25, he's going to do this 25 times a year to you, and every time it's going to cost you $2. It's not a ton of money, but when you're already operating, especially at the beginning, on such short, small, razor-thin margins, where every car you're only making $400 on at best after you've cleaned it all up, after you've reconditioned, maybe it stayed on your lot just a little longer than it should have. I mean, all these different variables, right? And now all of a sudden, your acquisition cost on average is $200 more, right? That's a difference. It's only $400 a month is what you're saying. I get that. But boy, there's another piece of this, is that extra $400, if you turn around and you put it into marketing or something like that, like now it grows exponentially. And now it's not really the value of it's not $400. Now for that $400 worth of marketing, you might end up with $800 worth of sales, right? So it compounds. Every month it's more and more. Every month the value of you getting bid up per car. And guess what? That's one guy who's trying to bid you up. That's one guy who's bidding you up 25 times a year. That's not including the other guys all year long that are trying to do the exact same thing. That's what I'm telling you guys. This is a tough, rough business. Why? Because you got these guys trying to do all these scandalous moves on you. Why? Because if they can thin out the crowd at the auction, they're getting bid up less often. They're lowering their acquisition cost, right? Supply and demand. If there's less demand, they can squeeze these cars out a little bit cheaper at lane 5, right? They can turn around, and now all of a sudden, if they may not have to go as far now if they can start weeding the guys out at the local auction. Now if they live, guess what? If you live in the Bay Area, let's imagine you live in Fremont, and you have a dealership in Fremont. Guess where you don't want to go for cars? You don't want to go to Bay City. It's right there in Hayward. Why? You know how expensive those cars are? They're almost retail priced. Why? Because you got all these different dealers all from the same area that are turning around trying to buy these cars and sell them all in the same little market, in a super overpriced market as it is. And all these, you got so much competition in this tiny little auction, and now it's got 4 lanes, 6 lanes going at one time max. Okay, fine. You got, now that's the gig. Now you're getting hammered. Now every car is getting overbid. because these newbies are sitting there bidding on these cars way too much, more than they should be, because they got a family member they know they can roll. They know they got a friend of the family they know they can roll. They know somehow, some way they can make this, this sale on this thing. Or guess what? They don't know, right? They're gonna lose on this car, but they just don't know it, and they're bidding on they're bidding up to that same car where 32 is the max to make a profit. Well, guess what? They bid to 4,000. Guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna eat $800 on a deal, or 400, or whatever it is. They're gonna eat some money on this deal. They just don't know it yet. It's gonna happen though, right? And that was the reason why. To answer the question, why not jump in the business? It's a filthy business. All you guys that are out there doing, I'm telling you, you gotta really be careful. I'm not trying to kill anybody's dream. I do want you guys, I'm not telling you guys to not cross the street. Guess what? If you're already past your 30s, the best chance of you dying probably between 30 and 60 is, I think, probably in a car accident. I'm not telling you not to drive. I'm telling you, wear your seatbelt. Right? I'm telling you, look both ways. I'm telling you, double check before you jump into the next lane. I'm telling you, don't text and drive. I'm telling you, don't get too preoccupied or get too stressed out and then turn around and go try to drive. If you're too tired, pull over and take a nap. I mean, I'm not telling you don't get behind a wheel. I'm saying take every precaution you can. I'm not saying don't get into the business or turn in your license. Go take your plates to the inspector. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying to go get in touch with Inspector Macias and tell her you want to hang up the gloves. I am saying it's a super cutthroat business. And the more you guys understand about every piece of this thing, you can. And the more you guys have a solid foundation for the business, it's going to start becoming more and more. It all starts with foundation. Again, I keep on referencing Allison. Her name's Allison. I keep on referencing my business mentor here and coach. Allison is, she's phenomenal. She's a monster. I mean, can see things that even after being an executive for a lot of years, there's a lot of stuff that I don't see that she sees, and I'm floored. She's brilliant. She built a company. She's an alum now of the Fortune 500. She had one of the fastest growing companies in the country, top 40 fastest growing companies in the country, not all that long ago. So she definitely knows what she's doing. She definitely has her wits about her really well. She understands technology really well. But one thing that I don't even know how the hell I got on her, but what I was going to say is that she's Jesus Christ, what the hell was I talking about? But yeah, that's Christ Almighty. So yeah, with this, the foundation. That's, after 8 years, we've been in the business 8 years, and first thing, let's get back to foundation, Mike. What's this? What's that? Give me your mission statement, Mike. I need to see your vision statement now. How about now we need to work on these other components, Mike. Where we're just working on Foundation February. That's what it was called, Foundation February. We're not done with it. It might even spill a tad bit into March, but we're making a real concerted effort to attack the foundation and to really build that up real proper, so where the foundation of the company can handle growth, can handle upward mobility, can handle different verticals, can handle sort of building a wider freeway, if you will, because we want to be able to. We want to have more lanes so we can have more cars. It's not more cars, it's actually more revenue, more dealers coming through the system. But yeah, I mean, she was very, very specific about this foundation thing. And if your foundation is not right. That's the difference between. I'm on this other kick on one of these segments that we're continuing to go down also, and that's why are these successful dealers? Why are they so successful? And the answer has everything to do with the fact that their foundation is set. It's set real proper. It's not scattered. It's not pieced together. It's not willy-nilly kind of put, together after, kind of having that after the thought sort of feel to it. It's got none of the above, man. When you see these great dealers that got their stuff together, guess what it is that they got a strong foundation for the business. The business is on super solid foundation. Every beautiful house you see, whether it's just a run-of-the-mill 3-4 bedroom house, or whether you're talking palatial estate, every one of them has the same thing in common: solid foundation. Every huge beautiful building you see, solid foundation. It all starts foundation first. There's a super good it's almost cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, where you gotta start foundation first. And it's because if you don't have a solid foundation, it gets a little wobbly when you start building a little too high. And I know this in particular because we've got a bunch of stuff going on that we started in 2018, where some of it was by design. We're trying to just do a lot we did a little bit of experimental kind of activity where we didn't exactly know what was going to work. We didn't know if Padlet was going to work. We didn't know if Snapchat was the gig. We didn't know if Facebook was going to bomb. We didn't know if paid ads were going to be the right way to go. We didn't know if YouTube videos were going to be the way to go. We didn't know if ClickFunnels were going to be the way to go. We didn't know if creating geofencing and creating some of these other, maybe we're going to advertise with IADAC and do auctions and go to different auctions up and down the state and put a booth at the auction and pay for it that way. Maybe get into used car dealer news, maybe pay for that exposure. Just a ton of different things, a ton of different directions we could have gone. What about SEO? What about pay-per-click? We really are at the point where did some experiments last year. By this year, we kind of figured out what has and has not worked, what is worth continuing to go down these roads, and what just is not profitable for us, or what's not sustainable for us. And we kind of have to keep the foundation consistent, coherent. It's got to all have symmetry. Even now we're starting to get into some of these new projects we want to get into 2019. It's all got to fit within the framework. It's all got to fit inside the same foundation. It's almost like a container. This is exactly how Allison explained it. Think of it like a container. And if you start kind of screwing around with this foundation and you don't have this container sort of tight, you don't have this container established, you're going to have a lot of spillover in a lot of these different areas where you don't want spillover, and now all of a sudden it's getting scattered, right? You want it to have symmetry. You want it to be cohesive. You want it to all work strategically together and to really have purpose and maximize and optimize every bit of activity you're doing, not confuse progress for movement and that type of thing. So really, I would urge you guys, if you guys have been in the business 10 years or 10 days, really revisit that foundation of the business. Revisit the why you're doing what you do. Revisit the vision statement, the mission statement. Really get back down into understanding, all the pieces of your puzzle that you really want to understand. And don't sell this process short. This is Mike from Your Car Dealer Bond, thanking you guys for really hanging in and listening to another podcast. Keep an eye out. Keep on connecting with us in all these different modalities, whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you guys like. We're on YouTube. Hit me there. hit me in all these different areas, man. I love to get the questions. I love to field them. I love to answer them. The one thing I want to do more than probably anything else is to help give you guys more and more content that you guys are going to appreciate, or going to find value in, and continue to help you guys succeed in this crazy used car dealer world that you guys are all a part of. So anyway, again, this is Mike Ramos from Your Car Dealer Bond, signing off of the Your Car Dealer podcast, telling you guys again, can't thank you enough, can't tell you guys enough how much I appreciate it. But you guys out there, tell a friend. You guys take care, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.